afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the latest edition of the Stephen A. Smith Show, coming at you as I love to do every weekday over the airwaves of ESPN Radio, of course, 250 markets across the country, plus Sirius XM, ESPN Style, Channel 80. Number to call up, as always, is 888-729-3776. That's 888-SAY-ESPN. Got a jam-packed show coming your way, some NFL talk to get into. Matt Patricia and Josh McDaniels and whether or not they're deserving of being head coaches in the National Football League. We'll get into all of that. Plus LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers. How much trouble legitimately are they in after getting waxed by the Golden State Warriors last night? It was a competitive game, but Kevin Durant is coming. I've said it many, many times. He's not just coming for a title. He's coming for LeBron James, and he continues to show it every time they step out on the court against one another. We'll talk about that as the show progresses today, right here with the Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio. But it's time for Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless, best phones, best networks, no contracts. We know where I'm going. We know where I'm going. The Houston Rockets showed up at the Staples Center last night to go up against the Los Angeles Lakers. At a time when they went up against, Los Angeles Clippers, I apologize. CP3, his first game at the Staples Center against the Clippers since he was traded. And by the way, he was traded at his own behest because he turned down a 5-year, $200+ million deal to stay with the Clippers. Some have found that highly questionable considering the fact that he's 32 years of age with an injury-prone history, at least to some small degree. Everybody recognizes that. Nevertheless, I consider him one of the greatest point guards to have ever played. I consider him one of the elite point guards in NBA history, a future Hall of Famer. There is no doubt about that. However, having said all of that, on this particular day, we have to talk about the great Chris Paul, CP3, in an entirely different light that I'm accustomed to talking about him. We have to talk about him in a fashion where negativity and fault gets aimed in his direction. There's no way around this. There's no way around this. The Houston Rockets couldn't hit the backside of Broadway last night. As a result, lost the game to the Los Angeles Clippers, who have now won their 5th straight. And in the throes of losing, Blake Griffin gets into a heated discussion with CP3. Ultimately, that was in the first half. In the second half, he drives to the basket, shoves CP3 aside, little elbow there, here and there. Ultimately ends up going to the sideline, elbows, or runs into Mike D'Antoni, according to Mike D'Antoni. As a result, you saw D'Antoni spew an expletive in Blake Griffin's direction. CP3 comes out of nowhere. He makes sure to get into Blake Griffin's face. They have to be separated. Fair enough. Few plays later, Trevor Ariza is on the court. Next thing you know, he's looking to the sidelines. Blake Griffin's getting ready to fall out of bounds, slams the ball into the back of Eric Gordon. Should have thrown the ball lower, but that's neither here nor there because he didn't hit him in the head. But ultimately, Trevor Ariza is seen talking to somebody. Turns out it's Austin Rivers, who's in street clothes because he's been injured. Austin Rivers is joined back and forth with Trevor Ariza. Trevor Ariza ultimately has to be restrained from talking to Austin Rivers. Clippers win the game. Teams go to their respective locker rooms. One would think it's over from there. Turns out it wasn't. What happens? Now, this ain't just a radio host. This is the insider talking to you. This is what I'm told happened. And by the way, Adrian Wojnarowski for ESPN reported this. He was on television last night doing a tremendous job he always does from an informational standpoint, educating us about what transpired. But I made sure to make calls of my own to find out what the hell happened. And I did. The Clippers are in the locker room. There's a back or side entrance to the Clippers locker room. It's where the players eat. But there's also an entrance beyond that point that gets you in through the back way into the Clippers training room. There's one person that would know that for the Houston Rockets. It would happen to be Chris Paul, CP3, the former Clipper. But Trevor Ariza walks in. According to my sources, CP3 is right behind him. According to my sources, Trevor Ariza starts screaming in the direction of an Austin Rivers and to a lesser degree, Blake Griffin. DeAndre Jordan sees this because his locker is closest to the training room, which I would happen to know because I've been in that locker room, and I know where DeAndre Jordan's locker stall is. And DeAndre Jordan says, y'all don't belong in here. And y'all ain't getting past me. And then out of nowhere comes James Harden. But outside of the locker room, at least 6 additional members of the Houston Rockets, according to my sources, are looking to get in the locker room. Here's the crux of it all. The leader, the point guard extraordinaire, the future Hall of Famer, the role model, the upstanding citizen, and the president of the NBA Players Association, which happens to be CP3. According to the Clippers, my sources with the Clippers and my sources that were in the locker room, CP3 did absolutely positively nothing to stop anybody. And ultimately, Patrick Beverley, the rough rider that he is, you know anything about Patrick Beverley, that's how he rolls. He's going to roll with his teammates no matter what. Patrick Beverley came up behind DeAndre Jordan and started yelling in the direction of his former teammates, Ariza and all of those boys, because he wasn't having them come in the locker room trying to start something physically. Clearly, the NBA will conduct an investigation. It is entirely plausible that suspensions may come down, if not at least fines. And the person that I'm looking at is CP3. Now, let me say this. I did a final take today on First Take on ESPN. And all I'm going to say to you is what I said on Final Take. I had to read it a little fast because we were running out of time. But it's apropos in terms of what I have to say about CP3. I could not have put it any better than I put it on my Final Take on First Take today. I want y'all to listen to it. It's time to stop playing games and just be honest. When it comes to the behavioral issues in the world of sports, this is the Colin Kaepernick era. This is the era where the microscope has been intensified, where mistakes have been magnified, where simple apologies are shoved aside and brands are tarnished indefinitely, especially if you're the black athlete. LeBron James may be the shining example of an athlete that actually appears to have gotten that reality throughout his career, but he isn't the only one. There's this miniature dynamo named Chris Paul, a.k.a. CP3, who's been pretty pristine himself. A spectacular point guard, a future Hall of Famer, philanthropic at his core, not to mention a great pedigree due to a fantastic parent and a phenomenally supportive sibling as his right-hand man. Paul, known as well for his poise and professionalism, also happens to be the president of the National Basketball Players Association, which is what makes his reported actions following Monday night's game at the Staples Center that much more inexcusable. To be clear, reports have inundated the news that CP3, the former Clipper, who turned down 5 years, $200 million plus to avoid playing for Doc Rivers with Austin Rivers and Blake Griffin, is seen spewing expletives at Griffin, getting in his face, then tried to sneak into a back entrance in his former team's locker room with other members of the Houston Rockets to get at both Griffin and Rivers. If this is true, and please don't doubt that CP3 possesses his own interpretation of things, how on earth does this look? Not just for his brand, not just to the NBA, which will conduct its own investigation, no doubt, but also for the black athlete, a group CP3 prides himself in caring so very much for. In this age of Kaepernick, we all know what's happened to the black athlete. They've been labeled ungrateful, prima donnas, hell-bent on bucking the status quo, disruptive, etc., etc. That Kaepernick was right, having had his real cause hijacked, is irrelevant to folks anymore. They've adopted their own belief. Just ask the NFL about their ratings, and you'll get the picture. Few know this better than CP3. Few comprehend its significance and works more tirelessly to debunk such idiocy and stigmas. Except it appears he didn't last night, purportedly with some of his teammates, on a day we're celebrating Dr. Martin Luther King, no less. That simply can't happen, y'all. That simply can't happen. No, it cannot happen. On the day that we're celebrating Dr. Martin Luther King, arguably the greatest civil rights leader ever known, who preached nonviolence, an abundance of athletes, all of which were primarily black, were tempted or appeared willing to engage in violence. And one of the people in the middle of it all, it is one of the most upstanding professional athletes we will ever encounter, who cares about his image, who cares about family, who cares about his reputation, and who happens to be the president of the Players Association. We'll find out more in the hours and days and weeks and months ahead. But one thing is clear. Regardless of what level of affection or lack thereof Chris Paul may have had for Austin Rivers, for Blake Griffin, for Doc Rivers, you cannot find yourself in this kind of situation. It just looks bad. And I'm going to say it again. It's the Colin Kaepernick era. Fair or not, because of an issue that has been hijacked, you have folks out there looking at the modern day black athlete, viewing them as unappreciative, ungrateful, and too willing to buck the system instead of going out there and performing. And they're looking for an excuse to turn against you, which the NFL and its troubles have shown. It may not be fair. I damn sure don't think it is, nor do I think it's right. But it's reality. And forgive me if I expected one of the most intelligent and upstanding athletes I've ever encountered, named Chris Paul, to get that better than anybody. He does. He just lost his way last night. If, indeed, these reports are true, and I'm being told it's true. 888-729-3776. 888-SAY-ESPN. That's Straight Talk Wireless, nationwide coverage on America's largest and most dependable 4G LTE networks. You are listening live to the Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio. Lots of stuff to get into. Make no mistake about that. By the way, Dollar Shave Club not only gives you an amazing shave, but they also make products for your hair, face, skin, shower, everything you need. And it's all their own original stuff. Dollar Shave Club has you covered head to toe. And right now, you can get your first month of their best razor along with travel-size versions of shave butter, body cleanser, and yes, even butt wipes for just $5. After that, replacement cartridges ship for just a few bucks a month. It's the DSC starter set for just $5 exclusively at dollarshaveclub.com/Stephen A. That's with a PH, not a V. That's dollarshaveclub.com/Stephen A. Back with more of the Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio in a minute.
Craving even more of Stephen A?
Him of all people!
For around-the-clock access to the man?
I'm Stephen A!
You can follow him on Twitter and Instagram at Stephen A. Smith and on Facebook at Stephen A.
Let me be very, very clear about who I am and what I'm about when it comes to issues like this. I'm not trying to get on CP3. I got love for CP3. He's a good man. He's a great player, and he's a future Hall of Famer. I've had the pleasure of meeting his parents on many occasions, speaking to his brother on many occasions, not just him, some of the best people I know. That's not what this is about. This is about reminding them and all of these athletes out here, especially the black athlete, times are different. Times are different. We don't like it. Listen, let me be very, very clear, and I'm not trying to make this some Colin Kaepernick discussion. All right? So I'm not going to entertain that. I'm just speaking factually. The Colin Kaepernick issue was hijacked. Colin Kaepernick was not disrespecting the flag. Colin Kaepernick was talking about racial oppression, police brutality, inequality, and to a lesser degree, an absence of civil rights. That was what his focus and his message was. The president of the United States of America, Donald Trump, successfully hijacked the issue and turned it into something else. And as a result, Look at what has happened to the NFL and its ratings. Look at how much money, arguably, it has cost the National Football League. And by the way, there were no players protesting the NFL. NFL didn't have anything to do with the protest. These players weren't protesting the NFL. They used the NFL platform to bring attention to a bigger issue at the expense of billionaires whose hands they have extended to get money from. That's a fact. I'm not saying they were wrong. I'm not judging anybody. I'm telling you fact. The NFL players, unless you were protesting the owners, understand that the owners think differently than you. If they're white billionaires or Pakistani, their issues may be different than African Americans throughout the United States of America. That's just a fact. So their view is different. Their vantage point is different. And as a result, because of what happened with Colin Kaepernick, you think white folks and other folks out there in the world that had a problem with Kaepernick's position are just looking at NFL players? No, they're not. They're looking at him as a black man, complaining about folks who are not black. They have personalized it and as a result have turned their ire towards you if you are acting in a fashion that they deem unnecessary, unwarranted, or offensive. That is a fact. That is a fact. And so because of that, knowing that, everything that you do, you have to take that into account before you act. So if you're LeBron James and you speak up about MLK and you use that as an opportunity to address the president and his divisive tendencies, I understand. You use that and you want to bring attention to the issue of inequality, of unemployment, of immigration, or whatever the case may be. I understand that. Tell me what last night's incident at the Staples Center involved visiting players trying to get into the home team's locker room to get physically at a couple of players on a home team. What does that have to do with the kind of issues we're talking about here? Absolutely nothing, except with this one respect. It's violence on Martin Luther King Jr. holiday. How do you think naysayers and critics looking for an excuse to get at you are going to react to that fodder you handed to them on a silver platter? I mean, why didn't you just spit in their face and tell them it was raining? You don't see how this correlates? Now there are people out there, you know what they're going to sit up there and talk about. Whether it's Stephen or anybody else. Trust me, sell out and all of this other nonsense. All those people could kick rocks. Nobody's speaking against Kaepernick. Nobody's speaking against anybody in particular. What we're doing is keeping you mindful of the issues that are permeating our community through the prism of sports and how you have to watch out for that. Now, all of the players are accountable. Austin Rivers is accountable for running his mouth just as much as James Harden and Clint Capella and Trevor Ariza and everybody else was looking for a physical confrontation. But the reason I bring CP3 up into the equation is for two reasons and two reasons only. A, you're the former Clipper. These are your new teammates. Don't tell me that your relationship or lack thereof with Austin Rivers, with Blake Griffin, didn't have something to do with their willingness to rally and be supportive of you against the Clippers. Nonsense. We all know that had something to do with it. And number two, and more importantly, you're the president of the Players Association. You're a leader. You're not just a leader on a basketball court. You're not just a leader because of your greatness and your future Hall of Fame stature. You're not just a leader because of the guidance and the counsel you provide to some of these youngsters on a come up. You're not just a leader because you're going to be one of the highest paid players and you're a star in the NBA. You're actually officially via a title, a leader in the NBA because you're a leader of the Players Association. When the NBA wanted to negotiate a multi-billion-dollar deal, you were sitting across the table from the owners. Michelle Roberts can't approve a deal without your approval. You're the leader. That's all I'm saying. As an upstanding citizen in terms of how to conduct yourself and what have you, I don't know too many people better than Chris Paul. This is not some indictment against the character of Chris Paul or anything like that. This is talking strictly about last night. You cannot find yourself in that position. It cannot happen. Not from you, not Chris Paul. Clint Capella, Trevor Ariza, it's all unadvisable. Austin Rivers, fine, it's all non-advisable. I get it. But CP3 cannot have his name associated with this. Great guy, great player, great family man. Proud to know him. He dropped the ball last night just because he was involved.
You're listening to the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
Lots of stuff to get into. First hour I spent talking about Chris Paul, CP3. How as the president of the Players Association, you simply cannot find yourself in a situation that he found himself in. I'm not accusing him of instigating anything. I don't know all the details about what happened. I know, according to my sources, Trevor Ariza came into the locker room. Chris Paul was behind him. Ultimately, James Harden came over there. And outside, 6 members of the Houston Rockets were outside trying to get into the locker room, but the door was locked and they couldn't get in. And Chris Paul knew a back entrance because of his days with the Los Angeles Clippers. And DeAndre Jordan had to stop them from coming into the locker room, and Patrick Beverly ultimately stepped into the equation. They walked in there. Trevor Ariza walked in there looking for Austin Rivers and Blake Griffin. That's what we know. My point was, you're CP3. You're the president of the NBA Players Association. You cannot find yourself in that situation. CP3 is one of the best professionals I know. Superstar, Hall of Famer, great guy, good man, great role model. This is not casting any aspersions on him, and I'm not trying to provide an excuse for any of you two. But I'm simply saying you can't find yourself in that situation, especially on the day we're honoring and celebrating the life of the greatest civil rights leader we've ever known, and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. You just can't do it. It's a bad look. And I also mentioned the fact that this is the Colin Kaepernick era. You got a whole bunch of folks out there because a president successfully hijacked the issue and turned attention away from where it should have been, which is oppression, racial inequality, police brutality, etc., and turned it into an issue about the flag. Clearly, there are millions upon millions of people who have sided with them. The NFL ratings themselves show that and prove that. And because of it, you can't find yourself in that situation. Because as a black athlete, let's call it what it is. You're under attack. The Colin Kaepernick era is here. Rightly or wrongly, fairly or not, it's what it is. Folks who are not black, who patronize the NFL and the NBA brand and beyond, are looking for the slightest excuse to turn their backs on a sport because of the players playing in it. You have to be careful because it's about mass appeal more than it is anything else. And if you alienate 66% of the population or beyond, you're going to find yourself in a world of trouble. Financially, monetarily. If anybody's smart enough, acute enough, adroit enough, intelligent enough to know this, it is Chris Paul, a.k.a. CP3, who I assure you is one of the best professionals you'll ever meet in your life. LeBron James has it down pat. He knows what to do and what not to do. He's usually doing everything right, which is why so many people consider him a phony, because he's too good to be true, because he's the closest thing to perfection as a professional athlete as you can get. that you actually question his authenticity because of how damn close to perfect he is. Bad day for CP3. Just a bad day. I certainly don't think it will repeat itself. But we got to call it what it is. And for those out there that want to attack Austin Rivers, I'm not here giving Austin Rivers a pass. Austin Rivers ain't in CP3 class. But I don't think he's a scrub. And I don't think that he's somebody born with a silver spoon in his mouth that wouldn't be in the NBA if it was not for his daddy. There's a few teams Austin Rivers could play on. He's not a scrub. And here is one way I will absolutely positively come to the defense of Austin Rivers all day, every day. He's always been the way he is. Whether you like him or dislike him, he's consistent. Austin Rivers is not a phony. He's a lot of things. He's not a phony. He is who he is, and he's unapologetic to it. I mean, hell, it causes daddy headaches sometimes because he is the way that he is. Whatever that may be. He don't care. He's real. Give him credit for that. And he's not a scrub. And him talking on the sidelines, that's fine. He was dressed in a suit. He didn't go into anybody's locker room trying to start a fight. And thank God DeAndre Jordan was there to stop all of that stuff from escalating, according to my sources. It's not a good look. It just isn't. CP3, the only reason I'm holding him accountable is two reasons. Number one, it's clearly residue from his days with the Clippers because he didn't have the greatest relationship with Austin Rivers and Blake Griffin nor Doc Rivers in the end. And now that's come to light. The other reason I'm holding him accountable is because of his stature and his position. You are the president of the Players Association. You cannot find yourself in that position. 888-729-3776 says 888-SAY-ESPN. The other thing I want to get into was last night and the Golden State Warriors beating the Cleveland Cavaliers 118-108. LeBron James and Kevin Durant had 32. Klay Thompson chipped in with I forgot how much he scored. I know Steph Curry had 23. All three of them shot better than 53% from the field. And see, this is the difference. Golden State has marksmen. They can shoot, plus they make free throws. LeBron James goes 8 for 13 for the free throw line. Kevin Durant hits all 10 of his free throws. Kevin Durant's a career 88% shooter for the free throw line. This dude's a marksman, man. Golden State plays together. They play unselfishly. They get their bench players involved. Cleveland doesn't do such things, which is why my sources tell me Tristan Thompson and other role players went upstairs to talk to Cleveland Cavaliers brass about how things need to change. Isaiah Thomas still working off rust. And Kyrie Irving is missed. My God, do they miss him? They can front all they want to. They miss that brother. Kyrie's special. And he's showing it in Boston. And I'm here to tell you something right now. I'm having serious concerns as to whether or not Cleveland's going to even come out of the East. They're still my favorites, but I'm concerned. Here's the other thing you all should be concerned about, unless you like it. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to ask ourselves this question. Forget Kevin Durant's coming, because I know he's coming. And I'll ask my producer this, Nuno, I'm looking at him right now, Nuno and Kat and John. Has the Kevin Durant era officially arrived? Because I got news for you. Kevin Durant, I don't know if anybody has noticed. He's been giving it to LeBron. NBA Finals, when LeBron averaged a triple-double, Kevin Durant averaged 35. 35 and 8. On better than 53%, better than 55% shooting. Ladies and gentlemen, he's averaging over 30 every time he goes up against LeBron, and it's always better than 50% shooting. This brother is on another level. He's not playing. This is not some dude that's flowing with the rest of the team and, oh, you know what? Let me shoot this open jump shot here and there. No, he's pulling up for threes in LeBron's face. LeBron goes to the hole in the layup. Kevin Durant comes back and slams a tomahawk dunk. LeBron hits a J. Kevin Durant comes in his face, hits a three. LeBron James drops to the hole. Kevin Durant comes down. He drops to the hole. He is coming for LeBron James. Period. He's not playing. He's not playing. And somewhere along the way, Cleveland's going to have to figure out a way to do something about it, because I got news for you. The Cleveland Cavaliers squad that I'm watching does not have any answer for this Golden State Warriors team. If the Cleveland Cavaliers don't make a move before the NBA trading deadline, they are going home in 5 games if they make it back to the NBA Finals. My man Jalen Rose came on First Take today and said the Cleveland Cavaliers are going to get swept in the finals. You know what the fallout from that's going to be, right? LeBron James leaving. Isaiah Thomas not getting his money. Cleveland falling off the map in the sport of professional basketball. I mean, there's some serious collateral damage if somehow, some way they don't get their act together. 888-729-3776 is the number to call into the Stephen A. Smith Show. That's 888-SAY-ESPN. Get the feeling of being rewarded with gold status at Shell. With the Fuel Rewards program, download the Fuel Rewards app. Join and start saving 5 cents a gallon today. You're listening live to the Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio. Back with your calls and more in a minute. By the way, I got even more to say about what's going on in Cleveland. It ain't pretty, y'all. It ain't pretty. Back with more of the Stephen A. Smith Show in a minute.
Craving even more of Stephen A?
Him of all people.
For around-the-clock access to the man?
I'm Stephen A.
You can follow him on Twitter and Instagram at Stephen A. Smith and on Facebook at Stephen A.
Let's get back to the phones right here on the Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio. Lots of stuff to get into today because here's the deal. You know, I already talked to you about some of the things that I was hearing in regards to CP3, Houston, and what happened last night in the aftermath of the Clippers win over the Houston Rockets. Without James Harden, by the way. He did not play last night. The other thing that's important to point to is what I'm hearing is emanating out of Cleveland. First of all, if you listen to folks close to LeBron, not only did LeBron not want Kyrie Irving traded, he said so. He told Dan Gilbert, according to my sources, he wants to go to war with the horses they have. Dan Gilbert tried to use that moment to get a 3 to 5 year commitment from LeBron James to stay in Cleveland. LeBron refused to do that. As a result, Dan Gilbert has been salty ever since. And according to some folks in Cleveland and in NBA circles, Dan Gilbert refuses to do anything else to improve the basketball team. Kobe Altman, a good man, young at his job, has been put in an untenable situation. He's in his first year as a general manager for the Cleveland Cavaliers, succeeding David Griffin, who, by the way, should have never been let go. Even though he was looking for a better opportunity, it wasn't a better opportunity somewhere else. He just wanted more money. And Dan Gilbert didn't want to give him that. As a result, he let go of David Griffin damn near a week before the draft, if I remember correctly. And because of it, it put him in an untenable position of having a novice. And I don't mean that derogatorily or negatively about Kobe. I'm just saying that he's young. Because you have an owner who you're trying to appease on a championship squad that clearly needs a piece in order to conquer the Golden State Warriors. And it's nobody's trying to say that LeBron James doesn't respect Isaiah Thomas, doesn't respect Jamie Crowder, doesn't respect those guys, that doesn't believe that they could play. Nobody's trying to say that. Nobody's trying to remotely imply that. What I'm saying is that everybody and their mother knows they ain't Kyrie. Isaiah Thomas off of hip surgery ain't Kyrie. Crowder ain't Kyrie. LeBron knows that. And would have preferred riding the war with the horses he had. But wasn't going to re-up. Dan Gilbert is circulating around the NBA, ticked off that LeBron James has the franchise in the palm of his hands right now. And so there's dissension. Meanwhile, you got Tyronn Lue that's got to coach this team. You got Tristan Thompson looking for minutes. You got Kevin Love that was asserted into the starting lineup and Thompson coming off the bench. You got Crowder trying to find his way, how to ingratiate himself with the offense. You got Isaiah Thomas looking for his money. You've got LeBron James looked undecided as to whether to stay or go. You got Dwayne Wade in the mix, which compromises the continuity that LeBron and others had with J.R. Smith. It's obviously affected J.R. Smith's play because when's the last time he's been relevant? I mean, the list just goes on and on. So it doesn't seem to be all right. Now, it's just a 4-game losing streak. It's no big deal. Cleveland will make amends. They'll correct the ship. They'll be right. But we all know they're measured against whether or not they could beat Golden State. So by virtue of that premise and trying to get things done on that level, the season appears to be a mess because it appears to be a foregone conclusion that the Cleveland Cavaliers would beat the Golden State Warriors. So much so that you've got people actually wishing for Boston to make the finals because at least there's more continuity with their franchise. This is a mess, man. It's an absolute mess. And it ain't getting much better. It's just that simple. Daryl in Virginia, you're live with Stephen A. Talk to me.
With the Cavaliers, what do you think they could do to kind of turn it around?
Get Anthony Davis, which they're not going to do. And you want me to tell you the bad part? Because if they got Anthony Davis, they'd be the favorites to win it all right? You want me to tell you the bad part about all of that, Daryl?
Yeah.
Boston might get him.
I know. Do you think maybe they should get Roy Hibbert? I mean, at one point he was a great defender. At least that could give them somebody that can protect the basket.
Did you just say Roy Hibbert? Is that what you just said?
A few years ago, he was a dominant defender.
Let me ask you a question. How big are you?
I'm 6'4".
All right. How much do you weigh?
280.
Where's the hairline on your head?
The hairline on my head?
Yeah.
It's receding.
Okay. Let me ask you a question.
Yes, sir.
Was it that way when Roy Hibbert was productive?
No, it wasn't.
Wasn't that a long time ago?
That was about a couple years ago when it was
a couple.
the Pacers were playing
That's
the Heat.
not true. That's about 3-4 years. LeBron's been in there for 3 years.
Right.
So
right.
This was 4 years ago. So you think I asked you? Take a moment to take a deep breath and ask yourself what was life like for you 4 years ago compared to what it is now.
Right. That was a long time ago.
Come on, bro. Come on, Darryl. Come on, man. You my brother. You better than that. You know. 4 years ago. Come on. I'm going to give you, listen, here's what I'm going to do, Darryl. I want you to call me back tomorrow, okay?
Okay.
I'm going to put you on the line tomorrow, and I'm going to give you 24 hours to lick your wounds and rethink the error of your ways. You called into the nationally syndicated Stephen A. Smith show, and you proclaimed over the national airwaves that the answer to the Cavaliers' championship prayers was Roy Hibbert. I'm going to give you give you an opportunity to correct yourself on that. And make sure your boys are listening, because you know better. It was blasphemous. It was just blasphemous. Thank you for the call. Bugsy in Indiana, you're live with Stephen A. What's up, man?
Nothing much.
Talk
I
to
was
me.
calling to pick a beef with you that I've had for a while.
Okay, go ahead.
And that is, why in the hell do you think Chris Paul is so great?
Hold on, stop right there. I need you to step back from the mic because you sound like you're in a tunnel. So I want to make sure my audience understands you. Go ahead.
Well, he's never won anything. And as of last night, his only ever accomplishment just got ruined because he's never going to have his number retired. Which, did the Clippers, do they even have any numbers retired?
Bugsy, can I ask you a question? And I love that name, by the way. I love it. I love the name Bugsy. But let me ask you this question. How'd you feel about Dominique Wilkins?
Dominique Wilkins? Well, his prime years were in Atlanta.
Yeah, I'm saying, no, how did you feel about him?
He was okay.
All right. Well,
let me ask you this.
No. I'm asking the question. It's the Stephen A. Smith show, okay? How'd you feel about Patrick Ewing?
Is Chris Paul any better than Chauncey Billups?
No. I asked you a question. I need to answer my question. I'm not going to hang up on you. I'm asking you a question. How did you feel about Patrick Ewing?
Patrick Ewing was garbage. He would be
okay, that's it.
NBA.
All right, that's fair enough. All right, how did you feel about Karl Malone?
Karl Malone, same thing. All the
garbage
guys,
garbage.
Michael Jordan face,
garbage.
They're all old and busted.
Hold on, no. Look, what I'm saying to you is this: these are Hall of Fame players. You know, you understand that, right? Was Reggie Miller? How'd you feel about? You right there in Indiana. How'd you feel about Reggie Miller?
He could bang the three, but he's no Steph.
He's no Steph, but he could bang the three. You talk about one of the greatest shooters in the history of the NBA. And because he wasn't the greatest, that don't make him anything? How you sound, Bugsy?
Chris Paul's nothing. Well, what has he ever done? He ain't never done nothing.
Can I ask you a question? Can you win a game by yourself?
That's it.
Can you win a game by yourself?
Yeah. Look at LeBron against the Pistons.
Goodbye. You sound ignorant. I tried to help you. You just finished saying you can win by yourself. You cannot. And essentially, you're going to give me the greatest ever, and you're going to say if somebody doesn't measure up to them, they're a bum. Patrick, you and a bum, that's just flat out ignorant. That's just flat out ignorant. Bugsy, get a chill pill. Get it together.